Nature designed the chemical inside this clove as a biological weapon. Its evolutionary purpose is to destroy anything that tries to consume the bulb. Populations across the Mediterranean, East Asia, and Central America consume this compound raw every morning. These regions coincide with some of the longest life expectancies on the planet, characterized by lower rates of heart disease and immune systems that remain sharp well into old age. That compound is allicin. It is found in raw garlic, one of the most common yet overlooked ingredients in human history. This creates a unique biological situation. The chemical system a plant uses for survival is the same one that provides humans with a pathway toward cardiovascular longevity. The garlic sitting in your pantry right now is chemically inactive. It is essentially dormant. Activating the compound requires a mechanical trigger. When you crush or chew a raw clove, you break open its cell walls and release an enzyme called alliinase. That enzyme converts a storage molecule called allicin into volatile allicin within minutes. But if you heat garlic above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, that enzyme is destroyed. The allicin never forms, and the biological value is lost. According to the World Health Organization, cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death globally, claiming roughly 17 million lives every year. This creates a biological choice. One path involves allowing the slow accumulation of arterial plaque and chronic inflammation. The other involves utilizing an inexpensive natural compound to target that inflammation at its source. In 1922, archaeologists unsealed the tomb of the Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun. Inside, they found treasures of gold and jewels meant for eternity. But among these artifacts were 6 perfectly preserved bulbs of garlic. The Egyptians believed a king would need them in the afterlife, though they couldn't explain the science behind why. While the ancients understood the protective value of this plant, modern science is only now visualizing the reactive chemical process that occurs inside the human body. Welcome to BioState. We are tracking what happens inside your body during the first 60 seconds of eating a single crushed raw clove on an empty stomach. As the crushed garlic touches your tongue, it detonates a sulfur bomb. These organosulfur compounds are the reason for the intense burn, the watering eyes, and the scent that remains for hours. These molecules are chemically reactive. They begin interacting with your biology almost immediately upon contact. Allicin is a biologically aggressive molecule that alters blood chemistry and enzyme systems within minutes. It is not a gentle supplement sealed in a capsule. It is a reactive compound that interacts directly with your stomach lining. This intense interaction is a necessary process to access the compound's cardiovascular benefits. Within seconds of swallowing, allicin enters the stomach and breaks down into a cascade of smaller sulfur metabolites. The most critical of these is a gas called hydrogen sulfide. This presents a biological paradox. In large concentrations, hydrogen sulfide is toxic. It is the same molecule responsible for the smell of rotten eggs. But in the microscopic amounts received from raw garlic, it acts as a chemical messenger. It serves as a signal that tells your body to adjust its internal environment. This specific message commands your blood vessels to relax and widen. This process is known as vasodilation. Raw garlic provides the precursors needed to trigger this response more effectively than almost any other dietary source. The ability of hydrogen sulfide to trigger this relaxation is one of the most actively researched areas in cardiovascular health today. This immediate expansion of the vessels is the initial stage of a cascade that continues to alter the internal environment over the next 72 hours. Crushing a single raw clove of garlic initiates a precise chemical sequence. Within minutes of swallowing it on an empty stomach, an enzyme called alliinase converts a compound inside the garlic into allicin. While stomach acid degrades many nutrients, allicin thrives in this highly acidic environment. Because allicin is lipophilic, meaning it dissolves easily in fat, it crosses the stomach lining and enters your bloodstream. Once in the bloodstream, allicin and its metabolites hitch a ride on your red blood cells, spreading out across your body's vascular highway system to reach every major organ. Their first major stop is the endothelium. This is the thin, single-cell layer lining the inside of every blood vessel you have. If you peeled this lining out and laid it flat, it would cover roughly 5,000 square feet. It produces nitric oxide, which signals your vessels to relax, letting blood flow freely and easing your heart's workload. In the first few hours after eating raw garlic, the hydrogen sulfide released from its digestion works in tandem with that nitric oxide. Like two workers pulling open a heavy gate, they force the vessels to dilate wider and faster than either chemical could manage alone. This chart shows a meta-analysis from the Journal of Nutrition. Across 20 trials, garlic reduced systolic blood pressure by an average of 8.5 millimeters of mercury, and diastolic by 6. For context, medications aim for a 10 to 15 millimeter reduction. While raw garlic is not a pharmaceutical drug, these measurable changes demonstrate a specific systemic effect. By hour 6, the garlic reaches your gut. This area acts as a primary surveillance zone, housing 70% of your body's immune cells. The influx of organosulfur compounds signals an increase in natural killer cell activity. These cells are your first responders. They patrol the body to immediately identify and destroy virally infected cells or abnormal growth. Studies suggest that consistent consumption can measurably sharpen this immune surveillance within the first 48 hours. By hour 12, we can see the inner workings of your cells. Allicin metabolites are now interacting with an enzyme system called NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B functions as a master volume dial for inflammation. When this dial is cranked to its maximum, it triggers the production of inflammatory proteins that over decades can lead to chronic organ damage. Allicin metabolites interact with this enzyme to turn that dial down. It doesn't shut inflammation off entirely, as you need it to repair tissue, but it lowers the volume from a scream to a whisper. This specific modulation is why researchers view garlic as a tool against the invisible, low-grade inflammation that precedes many major diseases. By hour 24, your digestion may feel different. Garlic's antimicrobial properties are now actively shifting the bacterial populations in your gut. Allicin specifically targets and suppresses harmful bacteria, like Helicobacter pylori, the primary cause of most stomach ulcers. Data published in the journal Phytomedicine confirms that allicin demonstrates significant antimicrobial activity against these specific ulcer-causing strains in laboratory settings. This reshuffling of your gut microbiome can lead to temporary bloating or gas. This is not a sign of damage, but rather an adaptation as your internal bacteria adjust to the new chemical environment. By hour 48, your liver, the body's detoxification headquarters, enters the process. To process toxins, the liver relies on glutathione, its master antioxidant. Your liver uses the sulfur atoms in allicin as raw building blocks to manufacture more of this critical molecule. By boosting glutathione production, raw garlic provides the liver with the resources it needs to neutralize free radicals and eliminate biological waste. By the 72-hour mark, your body is running a different chemical program than it was 3 days ago. Your blood vessels are more relaxed, your immune surveillance is sharper, your inflammatory dial is quieter, and your liver has higher levels of its primary protective compound. These changes in the first 72 hours are just the opening chapter of a biological adaptation. Sustaining this daily habit forces these temporary chemical shifts to become a permanent part of your physiology. As the timeline moves toward the 30-day mark, the focus shifts to long-term consistency. At 30 days, the biological data begins to reflect changes in blood work and health markers that a 3-day window only begins to suggest, revealing a deeper level of systemic change. It takes 30 days for a raw garlic habit to move from an acute biochemical response to a measurable systemic change, beginning in your blood. This timeline marks the point where we can track consistent adjustments to the way your body produces and transports cholesterol. 2 primary lipoproteins manage this process. Low-density lipoprotein, or LDL, triggers plaque formation when it accumulates in artery walls. High-density lipoprotein, or HDL, is protective, carrying excess cholesterol back to the liver for recycling. A meta-analysis in the Annals of Internal Medicine, covering 39 randomized trials, found that consistent garlic use for at least 2 months reduced total cholesterol by an average of 17 milligrams per deciliter. Most of that reduction came specifically from LDL. While these results do not rival the potency of a statin drug, A single dietary addition that costs very little represents a meaningful shift in lipid management, especially alongside a reduction in blood pressure. Managing blood lipids provides the baseline, but the 30-day mark also reveals changes in the physical architecture of the circulatory system itself. Arteries are prone to hardening over time as calcium and fatty streaks build up inside the walls, a process known as arterial stiffness. Healthy arteries function like new garden hoses. They are flexible and allow smooth flow. As they become rigid and brittle, they become a strong predictor of heart attack and stroke. Research in the journal Atherosclerosis followed participants using aged garlic extract over 12 months. The results showed a statistically significant reduction in arterial stiffness, keeping vessels flexible, while the control group's arteries continued to harden. Beyond the vessels, the immune system undergoes its own shift, as the daily influx of allicin alters how the body responds to seasonal illness. Data in the journal Clinical Nutrition showed that participants taking a garlic supplement had 63% fewer colds. When they did get sick, they averaged only 1.5 days of symptoms, compared to 5 days in the placebo group. By day 30, the digestive tract has also had time to adapt to the consistent presence of organosulfur compounds. Allicin may act as a selective antimicrobial, suppressing pathogenic bacteria while leaving beneficial strains like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium relatively unharmed. By promoting this microbial balance, garlic functions as a prebiotic that supports better nutrient absorption and immune signaling across the gut lining. On the surface, increased antioxidant activity helps support collagen, protecting the skin from the cumulative damage of ultraviolet radiation. At the top of the system, the brain consumes 20% of the body's energy. This high demand generates massive amounts of oxidative waste that can lead to cognitive decline if left unchecked. Garlic supports brain health by clearing that oxidative waste more efficiently. It may also support brain-derived neurotrophic factor, essentially fertilizer for brain cells, promoting neuron survival and strengthening their connections. While these findings are promising, it is important to clarify that most research regarding garlic and neural connectivity has been conducted in animal models, not large-scale human trials. At the 30-day mark, the effects of a raw garlic protocol are systemic, influencing everything from skin elasticity to the preservation of cognitive function. Given these potential benefits, consider your own kitchen habits. Have you ever tried eating garlic raw? And if you have, what did you notice in the days that followed? Let us know in the comments. Despite these findings, raw garlic is not universally safe. It is a potent biological tool that carries genuine risks. These include significant side effects and interactions with specific medications that can cause real physical harm. The human relationship with this plant is ancient. We are still seeking answers to why 6 garlic bulbs were buried in a pharaoh's tomb over 3,000 years ago. This is a biological tool that has commanded reverence since the dawn of civilization, one that requires careful respect to use safely today. Raw garlic evolved to be biologically aggressive. When crushed, it releases a volatile chemical burst designed to attack any organism trying to eat the plant. Inside the body, these sulfur compounds suppress inflammation and relax blood vessels, but they also inhibit the platelets that form clots. If you take blood thinners, adding raw garlic drops your clotting ability dangerously low. Case reports in the medical literature have documented patients experiencing excessive, uncontrollable bleeding during surgery after consuming significant amounts of raw garlic. Because of this, surgeons routinely require patients to halt all garlic supplementation at least 7 to 14 days before an operation. The mechanism that provides a cardiovascular benefit is the exact same mechanism that creates a severe bleeding risk. You are handling a potent biochemical agent, and you must treat it with precision. The primary compound, allicin, operates as a potent cellular irritant. When you swallow a raw, crushed clove on an empty stomach, that chemical aggression directly targets your gastric lining. For a healthy person, this might cause a brief burning sensation, but for anyone with active gastritis, a stomach ulcer, or acid reflux, raw garlic will significantly worsen symptoms and can actively contribute to mucosal erosion. Research shows an effective dose is 1 to 2 raw cloves daily. At that point, cardiovascular benefits plateau completely. Consuming more doesn't multiply benefits. Instead, the risk of severe gastrointestinal distress spikes dramatically into the red. High doses can alter how your liver metabolizes compounds, reducing the effectiveness of specific HIV medications. And professionals who handle high volumes of raw garlic, like chefs, frequently develop severe contact dermatitis on their hands. Raw garlic forces physiological changes through raw chemical action. Acquiring the benefits requires strictly adhering to its biological limits. Isolating these clinical benefits safely relies entirely on triggering a time-delayed enzymatic reaction. Swallowing a whole clove does nothing. The enzyme responsible for creating allicin, called alliinase, is trapped physically apart from its precursor molecules inside intact cells. The cell walls must be broken to expose the enzyme to oxygen. This graph illustrates allicin synthesis. Once crushed, the clove must sit undisturbed. It takes 10 minutes of air exposure for the reaction to peak. Swallowing it immediately halts the process, yielding only a fraction of the potential dose. The medicinal value is not sitting dormant inside the garlic waiting for you to eat it. It is created by 10 minutes of patience after the physical structure is destroyed. After 10 minutes are up, you can swallow the raw pieces with a glass of water, or mix them into a spoonful of raw honey or olive oil to buffer the burn. Taking this activated dose once each morning, ideally on an empty stomach, guarantees the highest rate of cellular absorption before other digestive processes interfere with the compounds. Applying this exact crush and wait method every morning removes the guesswork. You are precisely replicating the biological conditions used in the most successful clinical trials published to date. In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter opened the burial chamber of King Tutankhamun. Inside, he documented a deliberate arrangement of 6 garlic bulbs placed carefully among the artifacts meant to accompany the pharaoh into eternity. For decades, historians assumed this was a folk superstition to ward off evil spirits, a simple plant placed alongside the massive wealth of the empire. But historical records, including writings from the Greek historian Herodotus, detail a deliberate biological strategy. The ancient Egyptians fed enormous, calculated daily rations of raw garlic to the thousands of laborers who built the pyramids. Through centuries of careful observation, they recognized raw garlic as the biological fuel required to sustain extreme human endurance. These laborers were hauling multi-ton stone blocks for hours on end, every single day, in desert temperatures routinely exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Modern biochemical data explains the outcome perfectly. The pathways triggered by raw garlic forced the workers' blood vessels to relax, keeping exhausted muscles flooded with oxygen. Simultaneously, compounds aggressively activated natural killer cells, providing frontline immune defense against infections spreading relentlessly through crowded labor camps. Laborers who ate their garlic lasted longer on the construction line, fell ill less frequently, and recovered faster. The physical outcomes were so pronounced that when rations were once reduced, historical accounts document the workers going on strike, refusing to lift another stone until their garlic was restored. The Egyptians packed garlic for their king's journey into eternity because generations of empire building proved it was the ultimate biological survival infrastructure. 1 medium clove, crushed, 10 minutes of patience, consumed every morning. It is a 3,000-year-old empirical practice perfectly validated by modern cardiovascular and immunological science. As always, this is general education, not medical advice. Because of the potent cardiovascular and blood thinning effects, you must consult a qualified clinician before altering your health routine. If this changed the way you look at a simple clove of garlic on your kitchen counter, subscribe to BioState. We turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, one biological truth at a time.